3 spine-chilling true summer vacation horrors. Unexplained tales of sinister encounters revealed. The Harris family thought this summer would be perfect. With the car packed and excitement buzzing in the air, they were off to Maplewood Lake. Little did they know, the serene waters lay beneath a sinister history. As Tom loaded the car with sleeping bags and picnic supplies, his weary heart was full of hope. 2 jobs had drained him, yet just seeing his wife, Lisa, dream of lazy days by the water and their teenage kids, Alex and Maddie, chat excitedly about swimming and stargazing filled him with warmth. However, whispers of a dark past echoed in the quiet spaces as twilight descended. The mood began to shift. The rusting cabin, shadowed by looming pine trees, felt eerily isolated. Silence hung heavy in the air, interrupted only by the rustle of branches. A creeping sensation curled in Tom's gut. "Just nerves," he muttered, trying to spin straw into golden reassurance. But as shadows flitted around the periphery, doubt clawed at him, wanted him to question everything. A creak of the floorboards seemed to murmur secrets about the night they'd just unwittingly stepped into. The chill wrapped around them like a tight blanket as they gathered around a campfire to toast esmores. But Alex's curiosity got the better of him. He wandered beyond the glow, drawn by something unseen. He stumbled upon a dilapidated shack, hidden and forgotten among the trees. Inside, crumbling walls were smeared with frantic, cryptic scrawl, "Do not stay too long. It demands a price." Cold dread gripped his heart as he looked at vintage keys and faded photographs collecting dust. Dismissing it as a prank wasn't enough to shake the sense that something was terribly wrong. As moments turned to days, Tom's unease grew. His reports of chilling folklore to the local authorities were brushed off casually. "People get lost, sure, but that's just the nature of the wild," a gruff officer scoffed, laughing it off. Tom's family remained oblivious, determined to enjoy lakeside fun. Yet, whispers swirled between them, a pulse of unease radiating from the depths of the woods. Their neighbor, Greg, always flashed that knowing smirk. Something about his smiles tightened the pit in Tom's stomach. "Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue." Desperation seeped through the fabric of their family vacation. Each day spent felt like stumbling deeper into quicksand. The night drew thicker with shadows, as if the lake itself extended a menacing arm, beckoning them to discover the truth. The cabin creaked under the weight of secrets, and shadows appeared to draw closer with every flicker of the fire. Was it just the wind, or was something watching, waiting? On one final night, the darkness whispered lies and truths wrapped in dread. Tom's heart raced wildly within his chest, a primal instinct to protect flaring fervently. The tension crackled in the air, hinting at a reckoning that hovered just out of reach. Now more than ever, he had to cling to his family's bond. Because the sinister heart of the stories was far more than fiction, it was a siren song, drawing them closer to an unfathomable terror. Would they be the next victims in a tale that wasn't just told but lived? In the deafening silence, the truth loomed over them like a chilling fog, threatening to ensnare them all. The night felt alive with a pulse that throbbed behind Tom's ribs. He could almost hear the heartbeat of Maplewood Lake drum relentlessly in his ears, urging him to listen. Shadows writhed outside the flickering campfire, twisting into shapes both familiar and terrifying. His breath quickened, fogging the air as a chill settled deeper into his bones. "Maddie," he shouted, layering panic beneath his voice. "Come back. Stay close." But his voice was lost in the cloak of night, swallowed by unseen forces beyond the perimeter of dim light. The girl had wandered toward the edge of the woods, her silhouette barely visible against the backdrop of towering trees. Tom's head spun as he searched for her. The darkness laughed at his unease, taunting him with eerie whispers that seemed to come from every direction. Lisa turned, her eyes wide with worry. "Where is she?" Together, they rose, hearts hammering in synchronization. Alex had retreated beside them, flinching at the snapping of branches, the distant call of something unnatural. All three of them strained to pierce the heavy veil of blackness swallowing the forest. A sudden rustle made Tom stiffen. The pinprick of dread burrowed deeper. "Maddie," he called again, the urgency of his words tearing through the night. Moments dragged agonizingly, and just when Tom thought he might sprint into the depths to find her, she stumbled back into the circle of light, eyes wide, face pale. "What happened?" Tom demanded, taking her by the shoulders. "I heard something," she stammered, her breath shaky. "Not just the wind. It sounded like someone singing." Blood drained from Tom's face. The very notion sent shivers racing down his spine. Even in his darkest fears, the idea that someone, or something, could lure them into the woods was too much to bear. "You didn't go into the woods, did you?" Maddie shook her head violently. "No, I swear. I just heard it near the shack." Greg's warning echoed in Tom's mind, reverberating with finality. The shack, its tainted history pooled in their minds like oil on water, flowing toxic under the surface of their vacation. With dread wrapping around his heart, he nodded to Lisa. "We should leave tonight." "No, Dad. We're fine here," Alex objected. "We can't let it ruin our trip." "Dad's right," Maddie said, her voice trembling slightly. "This place is wrong. We can't ignore it." But before Tom could strike a compromise, a low rumble of thunder rolled across the sky, drawing the family's attention. Black clouds gathered as if summoned by the evil lurking just beyond their campfire. "Let us pack up," Tom declared, forcing authority into his tone. "We need to get out of here before it gets worse." As they moved, gathering their things, the wind picked up ferociously, rattling trees like bones. An ominous howl echoed through the woods, rising and falling like a terrifying melody. With a snap, the fire flickered, plunging them into eerie twilight just as the crack of bright lightning lit up the night. In that moment, they glimpsed the woods moving, something shifting among the trees, a shadow, a figure. All eyes turned toward the malice that lurked just out of sight. I think it wants something from us," Maddie whispered, her voice barely escaping her lips. A primal fear gripped Tom. The urge to run clashed painfully against the need to protect his family. The unfurling dread crackled in the air. And then, without warning, the figure jumped into the light for just a heartbeat before vanishing back into darkness, leaving behind a whispering echo that sent cold shivers racing down their spines. "What was that?" Alex cried out, his voice laced with terror. "Everything's fine," Tom tried to reassure them, though his heart knew otherwise. "Just let us grab what we need and go." But with each passing second, it became clearer that whatever emerged from the woods wasn't just an apparition. It sought them. Its presence thickened the air as if the very trees themselves had begun to mourn. As they rushed to the car, dread seeped into their minds. The shadows behind the trees seemed to draw closer. What price would they pay for their visit to Maplewood Lake? And then, somewhere in the depths of the woods, a familiar voice began to sing, a haunting melody that twisted their thoughts and threatened to unravel their sanity, drawing them to the darkness without reprieve. Where would the song lead them? It was a question punctuated by the chill of despair as the cabin stood silently, waiting, watching. What price would they be forced to pay before morning arrived? The wind howled as they scrambled toward the car, the sound like a banshee's wail, a warning echoing through the night. Tom glanced over his shoulder, breathless and wild-eyed, panic flooding his senses. Shadows danced with malicious intent, flickering just outside the reach of the car's headlights. The unsettling song tapered off into an eerie silence, leaving an unsettling tension hanging in the air. "Can you all just hurry?" Tom shouted, his throat tight. He fumbled with the trunk, the lock sticking as if taunted by the night itself. Behind him, Alex fidgeted anxiously in the back seat, his body taut with fear. Maddie moved alongside her mother, each person locked in their struggle against the encroaching darkness. And then, the song started again, a soft, chilling lull spooling from the woods. It twisted through the trees like fingers curling around their minds, beckoning, coaxing with an almost soothing quality. "Do you hear that?" Maddie's voice trembled as her eyes widened, caught between wonder and terror. "No, no, no," Tom muttered under his breath, a mantra against the creeping dread that threatened to consume them. "Focus, we need to go." Just then, thunder cracked again, splitting the sky in half, illuminating forms that lurked in the underbrush shadows merging and splitting near the shack. Heart pounding, Tom knocked the trunk lid open with his knee and started tossing the bags inside. "Maddie, stop looking," Lisa snapped, grabbing her daughter's arm. "Get in the car." Maddie shook her head, her gaze locked on the woods, entranced. "But she's right, we need to leave. It's not safe here," Alex yelled, and the desperation in his voice made Tom's stomach lurch. But the grip of the woods tightened, an oppressive force pushing against them. The trees stood still as sentinels, listening. Moments passed like hours before Tom finally tossed the last bag into the trunk, slamming it shut. The almost serene lullaby swelled in response, growing bold and taunting. "Go. Get in." Tom's voice was sharp, slicing through the thickening tension. The feeling gnawed at him, like a predator circling, and finally, they dove into the car, slamming the doors shut as if that could lock out the suffocating dread. The air felt heavier inside. The soothing familiarity of the car nearly suffocated by the outside's gathering storm. Tom turned the key, the engine sputtering to life. But his relief was short-lived as the headlights revealed a figure standing just outside the beam of light, a fleeting silhouette that sent ice racing down his spine. "What was that?" Alex whispered, his voice shaking. "Just start driving," Tom growled, his heart hammering as he slammed the car into reverse, glancing in the rearview mirror. What had briefly stood there was gone, lost in the folds of shadow. As they backed away, the car creaked and groaned in protest. The song surged again, beautiful yet menacing, wrapping around them like a thick fog. It pulled at their hearts, promising solace and safety, but laced with the unmistakable taste of deceit. The woods watched, waiting. "Maddie, what did you see?" Tom pressed, fear gripping him. She was the one. Maybe she saw something intended for them, something drawing them in. Through trembling lips, she finally replied. It was a woman. She looked sad. She needed help. "Forget about her. We need to go," Tom shouted, a wild panic throwing the world into a blur. As they sped away, the thoughts nipped at Tom's sanity. They couldn't just drive away without confronting whatever darkness had sparked their initial fears. There was still a choice ahead of them. Yet as they passed the clearing, the sound of laughter danced on the wind, sweet, innocent, yet chilling. It came from the depths of the forest, washing over the car like a blanket, enveloping them in a cruel embrace. "What if it comes for us?" Alex murmured, barely keeping his voice steady. Tom clenched the steering wheel tighter, eyes fixed on the winding road ahead. "Then we face it. Whatever it is, we face it." But the haunting notes spiraled louder as the last embers of the campfire faded. In their rearview mirror, whispering secrets of the woods they had yet to uncover. What hidden truth lingered between the trees, begging to be explored? The question hung in the air like fog, thick, ominous, and unyielding. They were not free yet. Not by far. The road ahead twisted like the fear curling in Tom's gut. He glanced back, willing the shadows to stay at bay, but the feeling of being watched nestled deep under his skin. What if they weren't as far away as he hoped? "Maddie, close your eyes." "It's okay," Lisa urged, but the girl was transfixed by something just beyond the glass, a distant flicker that kept drawing her gaze. I can't look away," Maddie whispered, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, reflecting some unspeakable horror. "Tom, speed up," Alex urged, his voice barely a whisper, the tremor cutting through the cabin like a knife. What if she? Tom slammed his foot on the gas, the engine roaring in protest as they sped into the night. Trees blurred past, mere shadows in his peripheral vision, but the laughter, sweet and thin, continued to weave through the car, a melody of madness pressing against their minds. "Faster," Alex shouted, hands gripping the edges of his seat like it was the only thing preventing him from being swallowed by the chaos. The air felt alive, pregnant with a kind of malevolence that tightened around their hearts. Just ahead, headlights illuminated a dense fog creeping toward them from the side of the road, swirling and engulfing the tarmac. It seemed to pulse with an unnatural rhythm, almost as if it had a heartbeat of its own. "Keep your eyes on the road," Lisa yelled. "Shut up. I'm trying." Tom's voice cracked, a raw edge slicing through the din. He veered against the fog, but the car seemed to pull not to the side, but deeper into the shadows. He felt trapped in a web spun by an unknown force. "Maddie, please. What do you see?" He pleaded, desperate. If there was any chance, if she knew something that could guide them out. They're behind us. The girl pointed, her small voice trembling. I can see them moving. They look sad. Like the woman. Don't listen to her. Tom shouted, panic flooding his veins. He had to shake them out of this trance. But as he turned to look, a dozen shapes flickered in the rearview mirror, shadowy figures gliding among the trees, faces obscured but sorrow unmistakable in their stances. Oh God! Alex gasped, his fingers turning white from the grip he had on the seat. What are those people doing out here? People? Lisa narrowed her eyes, trying to comprehend. Those aren't people. Those are Maddie's voice pierced through their fear. They need help, Tom. We can't leave them. Are you insane? Tom's heart raced, each beat pounding against the walls of his chest. We have to get out of here. The fog thickened, swirling like smoke as if the very air conspired to trap them, and within it, laughter, this time a shriek, bridging the gap between joy and madness. I see her. Maddie gasped, her breath hitching. She's right there. Who? Tom yelled, instinctively glancing back even as he pressed the gas harder. He felt disoriented, the night unraveling around them, an inescapable nightmare. She looked sad and lost just like the others. The girl's voice softened, a tiny beacon of compassion amid growing chaos. Close your eyes, Maddie. Tom shouted again, sweat pooling at his brow, mixing with terror. He fought against the sickening pull of the shadows, but the woman's image pierced right through the gloom, a vague, sorrowful face twisted in anguish. Suddenly, the car lurched, tires skidding against unseen ground as it collided with something, a spectral barrier that sent shockwaves through their bodies, rattling their bones. What was that? Lisa gasped, eyes wide as a chorus of whispers crawled through the fog, and Tom felt it suffocate him. Do you want to help? Help us. Those chilling words twisted around his mind, pleading, inviting him into their depths. The shadows flickered closer. Something primal surged within him, a fight against the threat encroaching on their fragile world. Push through, he yelled, uncertainty leaking into his words, uncertainty about what lay ahead and what lurked behind. We need to keep moving. But as the haze enveloped them, laughter rang closer, echoing insistently, drowning out reason. Tension coiled tightly, leaving only the raw panic that rattled through their hearts and bound them to their terrifying fate. They were not alone anymore. And just when they thought escape was within reach, the lights of the car flickered and died, leaving them swallowed in darkness, a darkness that was not empty, but absolutely full of eyes. What awaited them just beyond the veil of night? The silence pressed in around them, heavy and suffocating. Tom's heart pounded like a drum, each thud reverberating against the deafening quiet of the night. No headlights, no comforting hum of the engine, just darkness. Maddie? Lisa's voice trembled as she reached for the girl's hand, but the small fingers slipped through the shadows like smoke. Where are you? Right here, came Maddie's soft reply, but it felt far away, muffled as if buried beneath layers of fog. Tom's breath hitched. She was still in the car, but that almost made it worse. It was the silence that unnerved him. Can anyone see anything? Alex whispered, panic creeping into his voice. Tom, we have to do something. Tom fumbled for the ignition, fingers shaking. Just a minute, the rush of adrenaline had deserted him, leaving behind only fumbling fear. The car sat still, enveloped in shadows that writhed against the windows like a living thing. The whispers returned, slithering through the air, curling around his mind. Help us, they echoed, wrapping tighter, squeezing the breath from his lungs. Who were these people? Where were they? Tom couldn't shake the image of those sorrowful figures from his mind. Maddie, listen to me, he said, voice strained. Whatever you see, whatever you think you see, don't believe them. I feel. Maddie started, but then her voice broke. I feel sad too, Tom. She is lost. Lisa turned to Tom, eyes wide with disbelief. You need to start the car? Now. Shoo. Listen, he cut her off, hearing something beneath the chaos. A soft crying breaking through the whispers, ghastly and childlike. It made his skin crawl. Can you hear that? The branches outside the car creaked and groaned as a chill rolled over them like a wave, sharp and biting. Maddie, Alex shouted, voice cracking, fear rising. Don't look out there, don't engage with them. Why not? The little girl's voice drifted, strangely calm, tempting. They're just scared. Tom squeezed his eyes shut. They're not scared. They're trapped. We're trapped. But it was too late. With a flash, the fog outside the windows parted briefly, revealing a woman with hollow eyes and lips twisted in a desperate expression. Her dark hair flowed around her like threads lost in water. She seemed to implore them, hands reaching, fingers stretching, begging for connection. "Help us, please, don't look," Tom shouted, flinging himself towards the window, desperate to block Maddie's view. But the shadows inside the car flickered, and he felt an odd sense of familiarity wash over him, a haunting memory he could not place. "Maddie, keep your eyes closed," Lisa cried. Something shifted outside, a silhouette passing through the fog. Tom barely saw it. A glimpse before another wave of shadows thickened. He turned, clenching the steering wheel. "We cannot stay here." Suddenly, the radio crackled to life, a burst of static that cut through the tension like a blade. But as it faded, a voice emerged, distorted and haunting. "Help them, help, make it stop," Alex yelled, pressing his hands to his ears. "Turn it off," Lisa shouted. "For God's sake, turn it off." Tom scrambled for the knob, but a chill swept through the car as he turned it, as if the very act had drawn the shadows closer. The fog pressed against the glass, leering in, waiting. Their swirling forms danced, tantalizing in their spectral grace. "Out there it's cold," Maddie murmured, her voice almost a lullaby. "Out where?" Tom breathed, dread creeping in his throat. "Out there," she repeated softly, drifting toward the window as she reached her hand out. "They know no? Maddie, don't." His voice broke as he lunged for her, but she slipped away, entranced by whatever ethereal presence haunted the edge of their world. The moment of stark clarity hit him. The eyes outside the car, they weren't full of hate or anger. They were full of longing, grief, desperation. They were trapped, like they were, and all they wanted was help. "Tom," Lisa's voice quivered, and it pulled his attention back. "What if we can't help them?" he yelled. "We have to get out." But deep down, another part of him wondered, what if they could? A low growl resonated from deep within the fog, unsettling and primal. The air throbbed with tension, pulsing thick with uncertainty. The last flicker of light vanished, plunging them into an ink-black void. Shadows loomed closer, breathing against the car, a whispering promise of something lurking just beyond reach. And then, in that suffocating quiet, the laughter returned, insidious, echoing, mixing with a wail. Their world was collapsing into darkness, and something was waiting to claim them. Maddie's voice barely broke through. "I think they want us to help. They're closer now. Can you feel them?" What if they were right? As the laughter erupted into chaos, the very air sizzled with dread, and Tom knew they had crossed a line they couldn't turn back from. Can we trust them? The question slipped out, colliding with reality as the fog began to part, revealing the figures growing ever nearer. The real question was, just how close had they come to losing everything? Tom's heart raced, an urgent drum pounding against the suffocating stillness. Shadows gathered at the edges of his vision, stretching and curling like fingers reaching for them. "Maddie, you need to listen to me," he said, voice trembling. "Whatever is out there, it's not friendly. We can't help them." But Maddie was already leaning towards the window, entranced as the whispers grew louder. Her tiny voice quavered, filled with awe and dread. "They're in pain." "No, Maddie." Lisa grabbed her arm, trying to pull her back. "Get away from the window." A strange sensation flooded the car. It felt like they were surrounded by the cold breath of the dead, a damp chill that seeped into their bones. Tom fought to keep his thoughts together as he glanced towards the foggy outside. The figures, still silhouetted, yet somehow clearer, hovered just out of reach, drifting closer, desperate to breach the veil between them. "We can help them," Maddie murmured, her eyes wide, pupils dilated. "They just want us to understand." "Understand what?" "That they're the ones who lured us here," Tom barked, struggling against the rising tempest of fear and confusion. "We can't trust them." A wail pierced the air, chilling him to the marrow. The sound was joined by others, a chorus of cries that blended into one cacophony of sorrow and yearning. It twisted in his stomach, urging him to act. "Help!" The voices begged, and the tone became sharper, clawing through Tom's resolve. It felt almost like a chant. He clenched his fists around the steering wheel, fighting the urge to shout back at them. "Turn the lights on," Alex yelled, voice taut with panic. We need to see them. We can't stay in this darkness. Tom hesitated. What would happen if he illuminated the shadows? Would they scatter like roaches when the lights flicked on, or would they close in, revealing their terrible forms? The unknown weighed heavily on him. Tom, Lisa's voice snapped him back to reality. You need to make a choice. The radio crackled again, a voice barely audible through the mind-numbing static. Help please. In a flash of fury, he turned the volume up, desperate to drown out the horrifying sounds surrounding them. I said enough. He bellowed, hands shaking as the car rocked slightly, caught in the grips of tension. Maddie's small fingers drifted toward the window, seeking warmth and comfort. It's okay, Tom, they just need to find peace now. He shouted again, terror igniting in his chest. They are lost souls. They are trying to trap us, just like them. The shadows pressed against the glass, faces emerging twisted, ghostly. Hollow eyes stared back at him, pleading and sorrowful. A deep longing curled in their forms, yearning for something. A piece of their humanity slowly breaking through the fog. Maddie, he heard Lisa cry, and panic laced her voice. Look away. Don't engage. Please. But it felt futile. Maddie's gaze remained fixed, drifting in the echoes of the calls, her small mouth repeating, we can help them. A pain throbbed inside Tom's head, and he felt dizzy. The weight of despair seeped through every window, suffocating them a little more. He turned back to the road, searching for any means of escape. But darkness had swallowed the world outside. Whatever you do, do not react, Alex murmured, his face pale, gripping his seat. Just breathe. Just breathe. As he closed his eyes, madness flickered at the edge of his thoughts. What if helping meant undoing the spell that had entrapped them? What if they could break free once and for all? A shrill, desperate voice cut through the uncertainties. Help us. We're still alive. If you can only believe. Maddie's soft voice responded. I believe. The shadows pulsated, and the air became thick with humidity, an unnatural aura enveloping them. The fog surged, pressing in closer as the laughter returned, this time more menacing, reverberating through the car and striking deep. If we help them, the words lingered in the back of his mind as the shadows smiled wider, revealing rows of teeth shining with a horror he couldn't comprehend. Tom, Lisa said urgently, her voice breaking through the madness. You have to make a choice. Are we going to let them take us? The figures outside lingered, suspended in the tainted twilight, one step closer, ever closer, beckoning him to decide. Would they be swallowed in the depths of despair, or could they turn away from the abyss? But the gnawing question returned, echoing louder than the cries. Just how far would Tom go to trust? And as that thought consumed him, something shifted outside, brighter than the rest, clinging tighter to the fog. It looked like a child, reaching out. Help me. What would it mean to grasp that outstretched hand? Tom's breath caught in his throat as the faint outline of the child flickered in his vision. The small hand reaching out looked so innocent, yet the shadows surrounding it danced with malevolence that sent shivers rippling down his spine. He could barely think. His instincts screamed at him to move, to drive away, to escape the grip of this haunting place. Maddie, no? He lunged towards her, but Lisa held him back, eyes wide with terror. The child's voice echoed softly through the cacophony of anguish. Please help me. I need to come home. Each word felt like a promise, wrapped in a shroud of doom. The other figures pressed closer, their hollow eyes now glistening like obsidian shards, a terrible pact forming amongst their ranks. Do you see that? Maddie whispered, transfixed. She's scared, Tom. Just like us. Stop it, Tom shouted, desperately tugging at Maddie's arm, trying to break her trance. You can't help them. They're not real. But her gaze held steady, as if a magnetic force anchored her to the foreboding child. What if she is? The words dripped from Maddie's lips like poison. What if we could save her? A dread-heavy silence filled the car as reservations danced wildly, clashing against the surging emotions choking Tom's resolve. They are lying. He yelled again, shaking with exertion. Look at their faces. They want to drag us down. Tom, Alex hissed, his voice barely above a whisper, eyes darting to the tinted windows. They're closing in suddenly. All at once, the shadows surged forward, slamming against the glass like a wave breaking on rocks. Tom's heart jolted. The air thickened with an acrid smell, an unbearable weight pressing down. A voice, shrill and overlapping, roared from all directions, bleeding into his consciousness. Join us! Join us! The lights on the car flickered, pulse quickening, and for a moment, it felt like the very essence of fear wrapped around him like a vice. Desperation clawed at his throat as he fought against the rising tide of terror. He slammed his palms against the steering wheel, trying to ground himself. Turn on the lights. Lisa screamed, her screams blending into the sinister whispers that clawed at their sanity. Tom now? The choice lay heavy upon him. What if the light revealed terrible truths? Would it expose the monsters lurking just beneath the surface, or would it shatter the illusions they had woven? Tom's instinct screamed. He gripped the gear stick, heart pounding like thunder. Without thinking, he flipped the switch, bathing the interior of the car in blinding brightness. For a moment, everything was stark and clear. The figures recoiled, their hideous forms exposed like nightmares bred from the depths. Maddie gasped. Look! But in the light, instead of finding clarity, confusion reigned. The child was no longer just a figure. Her face contorted, revealing jagged teeth and a face both pitiful and monstrous, a marionette held by invisible strings of despair. Maddie! Tom shouted, shaking her. Don't look. We have to get out of here. But the child's shimmering form twisted back into the darkness, pulling the rest of them with it. Tom's scream was lost in the commotion, as faces swirled and clawed at the edges of his mind. Suddenly, the fog thickened, swirling into a cyclone of hopelessness. Sounds warped, merging into a bone-chilling melody of laughter and cries that seemed to invade their very souls. Let me go? Tom yelled, but it was drowned out, overpowered by the unending chorus of despair. As if sensing his determination faltering, the shadows surged forth once more, and the unseen hands gripped around Maddie's waist, their icy fingers curling tighter and tighter. Help me, she cried, voice breaking, as if she were already slipping away. And with that, an electric surge shot through Tom, igniting the last embers of his will. He was no longer just afraid. He was furious. No. He threw open the car door, adrenaline surging through him like a jolt of electricity. We fight. But as he stepped into that swirling nightmare, the ground shifted beneath his feet, pulling him into a realm of fear he could hardly begin to comprehend. What awaited him on the other side of the darkness? Would he save Maddie, or would they all become part of the abyss? Tom stumbled forward as the void welcomed him with open arms, swallowing his form like a dark ocean engulfing the light. He gasped, trying to push back against the unseen force dragging him deeper. He could still hear Maddie's panicked cries echoing in the distance, a haunting melody that blended with the chilling laughter swirling around him. Maddie! He screamed, the word barely escaping his lips before the shadows closed in tighter, muffling his voice. The ground beneath him felt liquid, a writhing mass that heaved with an unsettling intent, as if it had a life of its own. Tom's heart raced. Every instinct told him to recoil, to run, but the shadows wound around his legs, zapping the strength from his muscles. With every ounce of willpower, he forced himself to move. He clawed at the air, pushing through the darkness with a primal desperation. Stay with me. I'll find you, he yelled, though it felt more like a prayer than a promise. The shadows shrieked, a cacophony of anguish that threatened to pierce his sanity. Each whisper turned into a shriek as if their torment was a collective scream. And just when he thought he couldn't take it anymore, a flicker of light broke through the oppressive darkness. Tom lunged toward it, his heart pounding, desperate for salvation. The flicker expanded, revealing a twisted path of ash-gray soil littered with memories he wished to forget, shreds of life once lived that now lay abandoned. Demons danced along the edges, their faces morphing into familiar visages, people he knew from his past, faces washed in sorrow and despair. Tom, help us! They cried with their lips peeled back, exposing teeth that gnawed at the edges of his mind. He froze, uncertainty invading his bravado. Were they projections of his guilt? Manifestations of his failures? No, you're not real, he shouted back, flinging himself toward the light. But with each step, the ground would shift again, pulling him closer to them. It felt as if every footfall was sinking him deeper into his own regrets. Join us, Tom. We can be together again. Maddie's voice weaved through the chaos, sweet and laced with the agony of longing. Stop it. He roared, shaking his head furiously, the sound of his own voice barely cutting through the oppressive weight in the air. You're not her. You're just a trick. Suddenly, the figures surged forward, hands reaching out with grasping desperation. Tom felt cold fingers brush against his skin, patchwork ghosts trying to pull him back into their fold. He winced but pushed on, focusing on that elusive light, clinging desperately to his hope. Maddie, he called out, feeling the fragments of his heart shatter with each cry echoing into the abyss. He could feel the warmth of tears stinging his eyes, mixing with the rancid air that choked him. The light flickered again, and out of it burst a figure, a silhouette of familiar girlish features. Tom, help me. I'm over here. It was her. Maddie. A surge of determination crashed through him, but as he lurching towards her, the ground trembled violently. The shadows seemed to laugh, taunting him as they pulled Maddie back away from him, weaving a web of darkness that coiled and twisted with cruelty. No, I won't let you take her. Tom flailed against the current, but the shadows morphed into a monstrous entity, towering over him with its grotesque limbs a nightmare-given form. Just as it lunged forward, a piercing scream erupted from Tom's throat, echoing in the dark like a battle cry. He dove through the shadows, reaching for Maddie's outstretched hand with every ounce of strength he could muster. But something cold wrapped around his ankle, dragging him back, and with a pulse of sheer dread he understood. They were hungry. Help me, Maddie cried, her voice now a wail of terror, and as Tom's fingers brushed against hers, darkness consumed them both. The last thing he felt was her warmth fading, the connection snapping as the shadows pulled them apart, unraveling the very fabric of his soul. What horror awaited them in the dark, beyond the pull of despair? Would they ever break free from this sinister grip, or were they doomed to suffer eternally? Coldness enveloped Tom, wrapping him in a shroud of despair. Darkness pulsed around him, thick and suffocating, as if it were sentient and ever hungry. He opened his mouth to scream, but no sound came out. He was nothing but a weightless shadow himself, spiraling through a dimension that defied reality, held captive by fears that threatened to consume him entirely. Time lost all meaning. Was it seconds? Minutes? Days? The darkness twisted and coiled, filling Tom's thoughts with disturbing images. He saw flashes of Maddie, her face contorted in fear, calling for him from across a chasm of shadows. A pulse of raw energy surged through him, pushing him toward her despite the terror interwoven in every misty wave of darkness. Where are you? He gasped, his breath barely registering against the oppressive gloom. Right here, came her voice, only it sounded wrong, echoing and fragmented, as if it originated from 1,000 different places at once. Tom, I need you. He needed to fight against the shadows, to find Maddie. The impulse boiled inside him, desperate and raw. He forced his limbs to move, struggling against the frozen inanity of the abyss. Each step drew him deeper into the chaos. The shadows shifted, morphing into grotesque figures, each a vessel of his worst memories. Faces flashed friends he had abandoned, his mother's disappointed gaze, and maddening whispers of doubt that clawed at the back of his mind. Tom, it's your fault, they murmured, voices mingling with the laughter of the darkness. You left us. No, he shouted back, the heat of fury igniting his resolve. Shut up. You're not real. He kicked against the shadowy tendrils swirling around him, summoning every ounce of will he had left. Suddenly, the cacophony of voices ceased, leaving an eerie silence that felt even more sinister. The air thickened, and Tom found himself alone, floating in the blackness, but not for long. He heard it again. A faint whisper, a flicker of hope. Tom, please, Maddie. The word tore from him, raw and urgent. He strained against the darkness, his heart pounding in desperate rhythm. He wanted to believe in her presence, the notion that his love could guide him back to her. But as the shadows coalesced, he caught glimpses of her, flickering in and out of existence, a puppet on the strings of the malevolent darkness. Each time he reached out, they engulfed her, their chilling grip causing her to fade further away. I won't let you take her. The words pressed through clenched teeth, but doubt crept in. What if she were gone for good? No. Memories bloomed in his mind, laughter, warmth, playful banter. He couldn't lose that again. Not after everything. Rage coursed through him, and he focused once more. With a jolt of determination, he dashed toward the flickering light that promised her safety. The shadows retaliated, stretching and surging to ensnare him, their urgency feeding off his fear. Maddie's voice broke through the turmoil, laced with desperation. Please, they want to let me go. He pushed forward, hands reaching out, but a weight crashed down, rooting him to the spot. It pinched his throat, squeezing the breath from his lungs. Hang on, Maddie. But as he fought, an unseen force surged against him, wrenching him backwards. The shadows laughed again, a cruel melody resonating in the emptiness, drowning out her cries. The stench of despair hit him like a physical blow. It clung to his skin, penetrating his very essence. No, you can't have us. His voice burst forth, a battle cry in the gathering chaos. The dark entity loomed larger, its form shifting, and Tom realized that he was not just facing the shadows. He was confronting himself, his fears, his failures, endless echoes of regret. With one last surge of strength, he grasped onto the memory of Maddie, the light she had brought into his life. And in that determination, he was propelled forward, breaking free of the shadow's grip. But just before he could reach her, the ground beneath them trembled violently. Maddie's gaze turned from one of hope to sheer horror. Tom, get out. It's a trap. Before he fully understood, the shadows tightened their hold, and the ground shattered. Just as the darkness threatened to engulf him once more, he caught Maddie's gaze one last time. Tom. Then she was gone. The abyss swallowed her, leaving only echoes of her scream etched in the eerie silence. Now, Tom stood alone, trembling, heart racing, surrounded by darkness that pulsated with a sinister life of its own. What twisted fate awaited him now? Ensnared in a web of his own making? Would the shadows claim his soul entirely, or was there still a chance to save Maddie from the deeper dark? Tom's heart thudded in his chest, an echo of despair matched only by the oppressive silence. Alone now, he steeled himself against the shadows that curled menacingly around him. He could almost feel Maddie's presence, a faint warmth amidst the suffocating coldness. But she was gone, lost in the abyss. No, this couldn't be the end. He couldn't allow himself to be consumed. Fight it, he shouted into the void, desperation clawing at his throat. Each breath felt like a struggle against an unseen force seeking to crush him. But as cold tendrils gripped him tighter, anger ignited a fire inside his gut. He recalled her laughter, the joyous sound that had once enveloped their home, brightening the darkest corners. He wouldn't let it fade. It was a weapon against the encroaching gloom. With newfound determination, he dug in his heels. I won't give up. His voice rang out, a defiant challenge that rippled through the void. Shadows writhed around him, snaking ever closer as if resentful of his strength. He took a step forward, then another, using the echoes of Maddie's voice as his guide. Maddie, he called, the sound reverberating against the dark walls closing in. Suddenly, the air shifted, and for a fleeting moment, the ground trembled beneath him. It felt unstable, alive, as if crumbling under the pressure of his will. He envisioned Maddie's face, her wide eyes sparkling with curiosity, her smile like sunshine breaking through clouds. I'm coming for you, he yelled, and with each declaration, the shadows recoiled slightly, their dark forms blurring as if uncertain of his resolve. Then, he saw a faint shimmer breaking through the black. Maddie. It was her silhouette, suspended in the swirling fog, eyes pinning him with a look that flickered between hope and despair. He charged toward her, each footfall heavy with determination, pushing past the malignant whispers clawing at his mind. Don't let them take you, he shouted, anguish flooding his words as he closed the distance. The shadows hissed, a symphony of deceiving voices rising in a desperate crescendo. Help us! Help us! No, you're lying, Tom bellowed. Embracing his anger, he forged ahead, arms reaching, heart pounding like thunder. How many times had he failed to protect her already? Not this time. The ground cracked, and with one powerful surge, he broke away from their grasp, stumbling towards her. I believe in you, he yelled, the words igniting a spark deep within him. Suddenly, hands wrapped around his waist, pulling him back. You need to join us. A chorus of voices melted together in false harmony, undulating temptation. But he fought against them, roaring with defiance. No, you can't have my daughter. With a jolt of sheer will, Tom pulled free, his resolve burning brighter than the darkness encroaching on him. Finally, he felt warmth envelop him. Maddie. He reached out and grasped her tiny hand, feeling her pulse strong, alive, the tether of love binding their souls. The shadows shrieked, twisting angrily around them, but he held tight. I've got you. Maddie's eyes softened as they locked gazes. Promise, Daddy. We'll find the way home. Together. He yelled. With that, they surged forward, breaking through the haze that had entangled them. The shadows shrank back, screeching mournfully, struggling against the light brimming from their united hearts. Tom felt the air thicken into substance, each pulse roaring through their veins. A blinding light enveloped them, an expressway out of the darkness. Don't let go. They yelled in unison as the world around them shimmered and swirled. They were going home. In an explosion of brightness, reality crashed into them, and suddenly, the familiar hum of the evening enveloped them again. They collapsed onto warm asphalt, surrounded by the sound of cicadas, shimmering stars glittering above. Maddie, Tom gasped, cradling her. Relief washed over him, the terror dissipating like mist as he pulled her into a tight embrace. They were free. Lisa rushed over, white-knuckled and trembling, pulling both of them into her arms. Oh, thank God, she sobbed, clinging to them as if afraid to let go again. Mom, Maddie began, her voice cracking with emotion. I know, Lisa interrupted, pulling back to gaze into her daughter's eyes. But you're safe now. Tom took a breath, looking back towards the woods, a shiver inexplicably trailing down his spine. They had escaped, but the battle would linger in their hearts. We need to leave this place, he said quietly, grasping each of their hands tightly, a silent promise threading between them. They climbed into the car, and this time, Tom didn't hesitate. He turned the ignition and felt the engine purr, a smooth, reassuring sound. As the headlights pierced the darkness ahead, the woods loomed behind them. But now he understood the depth of its dangers. It was not merely a trap of wood and branches. It was a reflection of all his fears, all the shadows lurking within. With a heavy heart but newfound strength, he pressed the gas pedal, propelling them forward. We are a family, and we will face whatever comes next together. As they drove away from Maplewood Lake, laughter echoed in the distance, a lingering reminder of what they had faced, but also a testament to their will to survive. Dad, Maddie asked softly, glancing at the rearview mirror. Do you think they'll be okay? They're looking for peace, sweetie, Tom replied, taking a deep breath. Just like us. With that, the horizon opened wide. Hope sprang eternal, and their journey home had just begun. Don't miss a beat. You need to subscribe immediately so you don't miss our next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep the magic alive. Flood the comments section with your thoughts about this gripping conclusion. And don't wait even one more second, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this chilling adventure unfold. Together, we can keep the tales alive.